been injured by debris from Ukrainian missile. President Zelensky has acknowledged for the first time that his forces are conducting an offensive inside Kyiv. In his nightly address, he praised his troops.
І сьогодні кілька разів вже доповідав.
Today, I received several reports from the Commander-in-Chief Zelensky regarding the front lines and actions to push the war into the aggressor's territory. I am grateful to every unit of defense forces ensuring that. Ukraine is proving that it can indeed restore justice and ensure the necessary pressure on the aggressor.
The US Vice President Kamala Harris has expressed concern about the number of civilians killed in an Israeli airstrike on a school in Gaza, where displaced Palestinians were sheltering. The director of a local hospital said more than 70 people had died. Israel insisted it had targeted Hamas fighters hiding inside the building. Speaking on the campaign trail, Ms. Harris repeated her calls for a ceasefire.
Yet again, there are far too many civilians who've been killed. I mean, Israel has a right to go after the terrorists that are Hamas, but as I have said many, many times, they also have, I believe, an important responsibility to avoid civilian casualties.
The first of 3 funerals for the young girls fatally stabbed at a Taylor Swift dance class in Southport will take place later today. 9-year-old Alice Da Silva Aguiar will be laid to rest at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Southport. Axel Mercabana, who's 18, has been charged with 3 counts of murder and 10 of attempted murder. 10 police officers have been injured in Londonderry after coming under attack from a group of nationalist youths. Petrol bombs, fireworks and bricks were thrown at police lines last night. 1 person was arrested. The unrest followed a major police operation at the city's annual Apprentice Boys Parade, which passed off without incident. And Donald Trump's election campaign team has said that its internal communications have been hacked and suggested that it was targeted by Iran. Earlier this week, Microsoft released a report saying that Iranian hackers appeared to target the campaign of an unnamed US presidential candidate. Well, that's the news this morning now. Elizabeth Ritzky is back with the weather.
Thank you, Charles. Well, there's going to be a lot of sunshine around today, and it will be turning hot and humid for many, particularly out towards the south and the east of England. The heat likely to peak tomorrow. We are expecting some heavy thundery showers too in the forecast further north and west. Today, though, during the daylight hours at least, it is looking dry pretty much everywhere. 1 or 2 showers maybe just across parts of northern Scotland at times. That's a warm, rather muggy start towards the south. It is a little cooler further north, and it's not a sunny start everywhere. For southern England, for Wales and for northwest Scotland, we've got some mist and some low cloud around. Some sea fog too, affecting parts of the south coast in particular. Now, some of that fog could be a little slow to clear today, especially for parts of South Devon, but it should have dispersed by the time it gets to the afternoon as the breeze picks up. But otherwise, that early low cloud will break up quite readily to leave some, plenty of sunshine, in fact, across the whole of the UK. Very strong sunshine, of course. Some areas of cloud just floating around central areas at times. And North Sea facing coast will be a little cooler than they were yesterday with that southeasterly wind. But a dry, sunny, warm feeling day pretty much across the board. Scotland and Northern Ireland 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. For southwest England, western Wales, northern England 22 to 25 degrees Celsius, and parts of southern England could get to 29 or 30 degrees. Overnight tonight there will see some heavy thundery showers affecting most of parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. That's the forecast.
And that was Elizabeth Ritzini. 25 to 6, we'll have a look at the newspapers now. The Sunday Times this morning reports that the Director of Public Prosecutions believes hundreds more people involved in the riots will be hauled before the courts in the coming days. Stephen Parkinson says some of them could face up to 10 years in prison. He said that so far most of those prosecuted had been charged with violent disorder, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. But he tells the paper the next phase will involve prosecutors considering the more serious offence of rioting, which could mean up to 10 years. The Observer highlights its interview with the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who lays the blame for the crisis-hit criminal justice system squarely at the door of the Conservatives. She argues that record court backlogs and prison overcrowding inherited from the previous government make it extremely difficult to process the huge numbers of people involved in the violence. She praises the police, lawyers and judges for showing they can rise to the challenge in the wake of the unrest, but says their job has been made harder with the system inherited from the Tories. According to the Sunday Telegraph, a revamp of the school curriculum after last week's unrest will teach children as young as 5 to spot fake news online. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, said it was more important than ever that young children were given critical thinking skills to arm them against what she calls putrid conspiracy theories. Much of the violence was triggered by false claims online that the Southport attacks were carried out by an asylum seeker. The paper says those claims were then inflamed by more sophisticated forms of disinformation, such as websites set up to imitate newspapers. The review will look at teaching children to spot extremist content by including more critical thinking skills in subjects such as maths, English, and information and communications technology. The Sunday Express, Mirror, Mail and Telegraph all carry a picture of the family of 6-year-old B.B. King, who died in the Southport attacks last month. Her parents, Lauren and Ben King, released a statement revealing that BB's elder sister, Jeannie, witnessed the stabbings before escaping and praising her incredible strength and courage. They said her resilience was a testament to the love and bond she shared with her little sister. The Sunday Telegraph reports that NHS X-ray staff are now being told to ask men if they're pregnant before scans as part of inclusivity guidance. The new guidelines were written after a trans man who was unknowingly pregnant had a CT scan. X-rays and scans can be harmful to unborn babies, but NHS staff have told the paper the new rules are causing confusion and anger among patients. And finally, senior Whitehall staff are said to have told the Mail on Sunday that Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, is blocking access to the Prime Minister to the extent that he's being denied vital security benefits. The paper claims Ms Gray wields such power that even the head of the Home Civil Service, Simon Case, has been forced to ask her permission to speak to Sir Keir. However, a Downing Street source tells the paper the Prime Minister is having weekly National Security Council meetings and regular security briefings. A look at some of Sunday's newspapers. That brings the time to 5:39. We'll have a look at the sport now, and with more details of Team GB's medal haul and all the other top stories, here's Becky Davis.
It's been another successful night of athletics for Great Britain at the Olympics. Both the men's and women's 4x400 metre relay teams claimed bronze at the Stade de France. Meanwhile, Georgia Bell's powerful finish saw her take bronze in the 1500 metres. Tonight's results on the track mean it's now the highest athletics medal count for Team GB at an Olympic Games since 1984. Meanwhile, Caden Cunningham took silver in the final of the men's over 80 kilograms taekwondo. The 21-year-old narrowly beaten in the end by Iranian Aryan Salimi. Another silver too tonight in the pool, and an historic one at that. Kate Shortman and Izzy Thorpe winning Great Britain's first ever medal in artistic swimming. Earlier, meanwhile, there was more success in the diving as Noah Williams took bronze in the men's 10-metre platform to take his second medal of the Games. The USA have beaten Brazil 1-0 in the women's football gold medal match, former Chelsea manager Emma Hayes leading the Americans to victory less than 3 months after taking the job. Elsewhere, Manchester City have won the 2024 FA Community Shield, edging out Manchester United 7-6 on penalties at Wembley. Defender Manuel Akanji scored the winning spot kick after a 1-1 draw after 90 minutes. And on the opening Saturday in the Championship, there were wins for Stoke, West Brom, Watford, Sunderland, Middlesbrough and Oxford. Leeds and Portsmouth drew 3-3. Hull City and Bristol City ended 1-1. In the Scottish Premiership, Rangers beat Motherwell 2-1. Dundee won 3-1 against Hearts, while Ross County and Dundee United finished 1-1.
Becky Davis. And we'll end with a look back at the 11th of August in previous years. 10 years ago, the actor and comedian Robin Williams was found dead at his home in California after killing himself. It was later revealed that he had been suffering from an undiagnosed form of dementia. On August the 11th, 2012, at the London Olympics, Mo Farah became the first British runner to win Olympic gold in both the 5,000 and 10,000 metres. 4 years earlier, the online accommodation service Airbnb was officially launched. The founders started with the idea of putting an air mattress in their living room and turning it into a bed and breakfast. In 1999, millions of people in Europe and in Asia witnessed the last total solar eclipse of the 20th century. It was the first eclipse over mainland Britain Britain since 1927. The only part of the country to witness totality was the southwest of England. However, cloudy skies meant spectators there were unable to see the full effect. But the spectacle was still dramatic. These people who saw the eclipse in Devon were impressed.
I just can't believe we've seen totality, and to see it in Devon is just unbelievable.
It's like from that way it came black, and then from that way it came light, so it was like really confusing. And like you didn't know where the sun was, but it's still thrown out now. It's really good.
It's just fantastic. I didn't think I'd see anything at all. Absolutely brilliant.
In 1982, the notorious East End gangsters the Krays were let out of prison to attend the funeral of their mother, Violet. It was the first time they had been seen in public since being jailed for life for murder in 1969. Britain's last mainline steam train passenger service ran for the last time on this day in 1968. In 1965, 6 days of riots began in the Watts area of Los Angeles. 34 people were killed during violent confrontations between police and residents of Watts and other predominantly African-American suburbs. And finally, in 1942, the British scientist Barnes Wallis patented his bouncing bomb. The device was used by the RAF to destroy dams in the Ruhr area of Germany during the Second World War a year later. And that news from 1942 brings us to the end of this morning's edition of News Briefing. The time is 5:43, and that means it's time for this week's Bells on Sunday, which comes from the Church of All Saints, Necton in Norfolk. The Grade 1 listed building dates from the 14th century and features a fine hammer beam and arch-braced nave roof. The tower was rebuilt in the 19th century and has 6 bells, all of which were cast in 1833 by the Thomas Mears Foundry of Whitechapel in London. The tenor weighs 11.5 hundredweight, it's tuned to the note of G, and we're going to hear the now ringing plain bob bells. Saints, Necton in Norfolk. This is BBC Radio 4, it's 5:45, and time now for In Touch with Peter White.
Hello, enjoying the Olympics? Well, you realise it's just an aperitif for the Paralympics, don't you? In a moment, we'll be meeting these swimming twins from Northampton.
We're very competitive, We take everything competitively. Outside the pool, we support each other, but then once in the pool, we're very competitive.
But first, it all started back in the 1960s, when it began to be realised that blind and partially sighted people were missing out on news of what was happening on their own doorstep. The only way then you could access your local newspaper was by bullying some poor relative or friend to read it to you. And so the talking newspaper movement began, and it's still thriving. There are around 300 groups around the UK affiliated to the TNF, or Talking News Federation, with volunteers who record from editions of the local rag.
South Yorkshire Mayor Oliver Cockart has unveiled a 250 kilometre bike around the region, which misses up.
Today's technology means that there are a number of ways blind people can now access the papers, but many listeners still rely on the postal services to deliver them on memory sticks, CDs, and even cassettes to their front door. And this is where the problem starts. Well, at this point, I should declare an interest. I've been president of the Talking News Federation for the past 20 years, but it's not an honorary position, and I have no voting rights and no say in directing policy. But members have been reporting late or no deliveries, and the talking newspapers themselves are finding that the quite expensive pouches they send the recordings out in are quite often not being returned. It was Boston and South Holland's Talking newspaper in Lincolnshire which drew this to the attention of BBC Look North, their regional TV magazine programme. Roger Fixter is founder, committee member and a regular listener to his local paper. He explained why this was all such an issue.
It means that we don't get to read, if you like, the local newspaper. Apart from listening to local radio, in our case, BBC Radio Lincolnshire, we occasionally get mentioned here in Little Boston, but not as much as the newspapers would tell us. Now, the problem is, when I've listened to it, and I put it in my local post box, it should get back to them within a matter of a few days, but it can take up to 3 weeks or more before it gets back. So if they don't receive anything back for more than 3 weeks, they are unable to record the next edition, which has been going on for quite some time, several years.
Well, these problems are by no means confined to Lincolnshire. Lisa Astle is chair of the Talking newspaper in Rotherham, which has around 400 listeners. She explained when they started to experience problems.
This happened about a year ago. It was shortly after the post office strike, but when we got around to June, July time, we were noticing that we were running out of pouches, so on several occasions we were very close to having to suspend the service.
Do they have to go out in the pouches? What's the significance of that?
Yes, they're brightly coloured plastic pouches that are quite noticeable next to normal posts, and the various bits of audio equipment go in them, and they go via the Articulture Line free post service.
I'm assuming that you approached Royal Mail over this. What responses have you had?
We approached our local talking people at Brilliant, and they said that they were basically delivering everything that they received. They said, well, go through the complaint procedure, but the problem we have with the Royal Mail complaint procedure is that items have to be tracked, so you've got to have proof of postage. The items aren't tracked, the listeners merely turn the address label over at the post box, so there's no proof of posting.
Is that about cost? Tracking would cost you extra money, would it?
Oh yeah, because every single listener return them, we have to return them via the post office. Many of our listeners are relying on carriers or family members to post the tracking tax. We are aware that we have some listeners who have difficulties posting them back, but the amount of pouches and equipment that is missing is a considerable amount. It's like 250,000. They're not cheap, it's not the pouch and the pouch to stand out with all the equipment in it. So it's a hard time to listen.
What do you want Royal Mail to do?
Well, they have looked into it and they find no reason for it, but it's still going on. And also, with the Royal Mail is now wanting to 3 days a week for it. Because we have to sort of change the service to once a week. The mail is not working for us as it used to be.
Lisa Aston. Now, June is from the Cotswolds in Gloucestershire. She's a trustee of the TNF. Your role is engagement with newspapers around the UK. What's the overall picture?
We are all experiencing the same difficulties in our own experience as the other Gloucestershire TN primary here. Our listeners aren't getting them and we're not getting them back. There is a cost here, there's quite a substantial cost to us to try and make sure that we have enough pouches and member sticks and CDs or whatever it is you send out to maintain the service, but it is a constant struggle.
Just explain the other ways people are receiving talking newspapers now, because technology has meant alternatives.
Within my own TN, we are encouraging people, particularly new listeners, to access the British Wireless for the Blind Fund via their app or via Alexa. With the demographic, the age group that we are dealing with, a lot of them don't have Wi-Fi, they don't have computers or anything else, so then that precludes them.
Now, we first invited Royal Mail onto this programme over a fortnight ago to discuss these issues with us. Other stories intervened, but almost a week ago we sent details of the complaints that had been made. They haven't taken up our invitation to appear, but instead they told us in this statement, "We're proud to offer our articles for the blind scheme. We are taking steps to improve the service by monitoring deliveries, posting reminder notices in delivery offices, and increasing delivery days where possible. We would like to apologise for any issues experienced." Can I just get your reactions to that, Jim?
Quite well disappointed. I would love to sit down with anybody from the post office who has a decision-making role and just talk through the issues. I say our local sorting officers and any TN you speak to speak highly of them. But in all honesty, I don't think it's been communicated to them, the importance of the articles for the blind and how it fits into the post office's Royal Mail processes.
Well, we'll have to leave it there, but we will continue to watch this carefully. June Little, thank you very much indeed.